Hello, this is the second garden video that I've made. It's been 6 days since my last video, and as I have a little bit of time in the house on my own, I decided to make this today. It's not very bright in Scotland today. As you can see, it's very cloudy. There's no washing out. And there are no birds. There's nothing going on in the garden today. I'm not in the garden today, although I think I should be with a jacket on planting some bulbs, but I decided it was just a little too cold and I would wait and see if the weather, because I think the weather's changing, and if the weather is changing and it's going back to rain, I'll continue the work on the inside of the house. But if the weather stays nice, then I'll continue the work on the outside. I just wanted to give myself a quick update. I planted many seeds and a lot of bulbs this week. Moved a few things around the garden. The table that's up on the decking was down here on the right hand side. I used to use it for planting up wee seed pots and trays, stuff like that. But I've moved it because I've planted 2 birch trees down there last year in the right hand corner here at the bottom. So I planted 2 birch trees there. I also planted one that's just beside the table on the decking in there as well. But I have a lovely magnolia tree out the front in a pot, and I'd like to put it in beside the 2 birch trees. And I'd also like to finish off that as a little rockery. I've always wanted a wee rockery with some lights and whatever. So that's a project that I've put down in my wee book. I always write down my projects on the day that I think of them. And usually have a lot of ideas, but by the end of the day I forget. So I try to write them down as I think of them. And then I go over them later and think which one would be best or which one I like the best. I've had a few ideas for the fence. I do want to paint it, but I want to make a couple of like wall art, but it'll be fence art, things along it. Maybe a paw print, because I have my dogs and they're just my furry muppets and they're angels, which they're not, they're horrors, but they're angels. And also maybe a butterfly. I was thinking of making that out of spare wood or any other kind of stuff I've got kicking about the garden if it can be used. I'm huge on recycling or upcycling. I really love to use everything if it can be used again and again. So the old fence, it's an old wire fence. It's got very small spacing between it, which would be excellent for a clematis climber. And I would like to put a clematis climber on the side of the small blue hut and plant a few clematis underneath, because clematis, they love shade at the roots and sunshine on the flowers, so that would be the perfect place to grow that in there. And maybe a few hostas, which my son gave me as a present for my birthday. I got a few bulbs of him, and I still have a few hosta bulbs to plant from that selection, so they could go in there. So I would need to attach the wire fence. It's quite a heavy fence, but if I attach it on with some good hooks and rigid it right up next to the back of the hut, I think it would be okay. I spent most of the weekend, last weekend, burning the old bits of wood that I had, old branches that were off trees last year. There's still a few down there next to the wee fire pit with the cover over it, but I'm maybe going to make that into something onto the side of one of the huts and maybe put lights up it like a wee tree, but we'll wait and see. Yet again, we'll wait and see. I planted, like I said, many seeds and many bulbs this week. I planted some lovely butterfly and bee selections, which have got lavender and forget-me-nots. I planted a few lilies and dahlia bulbs in the fire pit, so we'll see how they come up. Hopefully we'll get about maybe 3 months to wait and see how those go. I've got a beautiful trough out the front that my neighbour built me with the leftover wood that I had from the decking years ago. And I'd like to bring that back out the back door and set it up where the table's actually sitting just now, because that will get sunshine all round. And I'll plant the lilies and the dahlias and some daffodils, I think. And then also plant some geraniums and maybe some more clematis. I don't do jasmine. I have had jasmine, but I'm not really keen on it. I have a rhododendron bush down here on the left-hand corner, and just in front of it is my azalea. Now, my azalea is huge, but I have pests on it. They are like tiny little green caterpillars, but they're not. They're from a sawfly, which also they may be from a moth, but that would make it a caterpillar, which they're not. They are these little green things, but they're not caterpillars. So that's been attacking that. It's also been attacking a willow tree that I have out the front, which I'm hoping it will get better, but I don't see it getting any better. I've tried for 3 years now. And if it doesn't get any better this year, the only option I have is to actually dig it up and burn it, because what's wrong with it can actually affect other plants. And if I leave it, then it can affect any other plants that I've got out the front as well. Now, in the middle of the right-hand side fence, in that big horrible bare patch, there is a new buddleia growing. My neighbour on the left-hand side has a buddleia tree, years and years. It's very big. She chops it down twice a year, and it just comes back, hugely comes back. And the butterflies adore it. And 4 have grown in my garden in the last 4 years, 4 of them. I keep moving them and potting them, and I gave some away to friends, but they keep growing and they keep coming back. So I'm just going to listen to nature, because nature is saying, look, I want to grow here. So I'm just going to leave it alone and just let it grow where it seeds itself, if it's not too close to the house. So I planted a full pot of lavender, which I will sit by the garden gate. It is extremely beautiful smelling in the summer, so hopefully that will come up very nice. Also this year I done a sprinkle mix on the bottom right hand corner, and where the 2 birch trees are. I done the butterfly and bee mix. There's so many different flowers that was in. I think there was maybe over 500 small seeds. So I just mixed them up into some compost and some grit, and then threw them out in handfuls, because that way you're kind of distributing them a little more evenly, not greatly evenly, but I just used them all. So there's a wee butterfly and bee garden should grow up in that kind of curved rockery bit next to the buddleia. And I've seen a couple of huge bumblebees so far. So it means spring's definitely on its way. I have a few other bits and pieces to do with cleaning the garden before I can paint the fence or start cleaning up the decking, and I might paint the decking. I've also got garden lights to look at, because one set of my lights will not turn on and the light up the back won't turn on at all. So I'm going to have to check those out when I get a minute. But I've only power washed a little bit of the paving so far. I have a path and then the steps, which will need done, and then I have quite a bit of concrete just underneath the kitchen window, which I will show you when I eventually get to go outside and take these videos, when it is nice, which will be very rare as it is Scotland. But if it is nice and sunshiny and it's not too loud out in the garden, I would love to video those little videos from the garden. So I would. So in the little pots, I have little pots sitting on top of the glass table. There's pink ones, the red ones, there's also a yellow one. I planted all of the pots with the same species of flower, but I just done separate pots. I don't usually do that. I usually do a mix like I did in the butterfly and bee, but I thought, no, we'll try and see if this looks any different. So we've got some cornflowers, and they're a lovely blue-purple colour. so that should be nice. Planted some calendulas, the wee mini, as I call them, mini sunflowers. They're like pom-poms, absolutely gorgeous. Something called candy tuft, which I am not sure what that is. I do have a candy floss bush, which is down in the right-hand corner as well. It grows, it's supposed to come back maybe once every 1 or 1.5 years, and it's not supposed to be hardy. It's an annual or a biannual. So I'm quite happy because that just started growing in my garden. Like I said, maybe it came in one of the butterfly and bee mixtures that I bought, because I do buy quite a lot of just mixtures and throw them about the garden. So that'll be nice to come up. I also planted Nigella, which they call it Love in a Mist. I've never grown that before. And I also planted some poppies. So hopefully in a few weeks' time, we should be seeing quite strong stalks and maybe even some lovely wee buds. The Azalea has many buds on it. The Rhododendron has quite a few buds on it. They should come into flower maybe mid-April. Next to the table on the deck in the tall tree, well, it's a stick at the moment, but it will leaf out. That's the birch. But underneath that, a very, very small kind of looking tree is my princess tree. And I've had that for 3 years, and I've kept it in a pot because they say it is the fastest growing tree in the world. So last year I decided, okay, let's just jump in and we'll plant it in the garden and we'll see what happens. So I made sure it wasn't underneath any wires, and hopefully, because if it grows up nice and tall, it gives a beautiful pink or blue. I'm unsure of the colour. You don't know until it buds. So pink or blue flower in the springtime. And then I'll need to start organising some colour for midsummer and autumn. And if I start that now, organise it, then maybe the garden will look a bit better this year than it did last year. I also want to build a new gate up the back of the garden to go along with the new fence. The gate at the back is a gate between me and my sister. My sister lives across the back door from me, so we want a gate there and not a fence. So it's quite a big gate. So I've got that project to get on with as well. But again, we have to wait for dry, sunny days, and it's not dry out there today. It's extremely damp in the air. It's not nice. It's not. I think that's everything I wanted to give an update on. I don't think there is anything else that I wanted to put in my wee garden diary. And hopefully I'll be able to make another one again next week. And there will be, hopefully, more nature in the garden. Thanks for watching.